Brom, the one literally the one that was known as a Revolutionary War hero drove the Hessians out after they burned down the Tasselhorn farmland. He got everybody from North Tarrytown, and they went and attacked and drove them out.
He pretty much became a hero.
He was a town hero for doing that. Because back then everybody was the militia.
Yeah, because look at that movie, The Patriot. That's how.
That's very it's embellished on a lot of stuff, but other than him walking out like George Washington, that's what Washington would do. Was he picked up tactics from Indians and that about, hey, you don't stand.
Well, you had to. You had these idiots coming at you in bright red colors, and he looked at these farmer boys that he has for his army, like, guys, we're going to hide behind trees and stone. We're going to take a shot, then we're going to take off.
Yeah.
Why would we march right at you, shoot our guns?
Because that was traditional war. That's how things were done.
But he knew he could not win that way.
Yeah, but there's also, technology is a little different. So when the English came over, even the Hessians, 90% of the rifles were smoothbore. They weren't rifles. Nope. So you stood in a line so you could try to mow down an area because they weren't as accurate. Yeah. In the U.S., we had rifles. They were doing rifling in the barrels. They're recruited because it was twisted, but because of that, they were more accurate.
Yeah. The smooth barrel, they would just go any which direction.
So you lined up in a line,
right?
And you fire it could be 6 foot off, but that's why they did a volley like that. Then they'd step down behind them. They're literally doing a volley like a huge shotgun to hit these areas.
Yeah.
The U.S. had been dealing with actual having to hunt, being accurate. And they realized that they didn't have the firepower or even the number of people, so they started doing guerrilla tactics. And the French helped out with that. They helped. The French had learned it from the Indians. Then the French told us on how to do it, and we're like, oh, well, yeah, you set up the ambushes. There's no reason to...
If the French Navy hadn't shown up to help us for the Revolutionary War, we wouldn't have won.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They were influential beyond belief.
There's a lot of things on the Revolutionary War that were so minute, like had certain things not fallen in the right place. Because honestly, England didn't really send their best. That's why they sent the Hessians. Was they figured they could pay off, get the Hessians over here, they'd quell it. If they didn't lose anybody. Because at that moment in time, we were not very profitable as a colony because we had ruined the farmland doing cotton and tobacco and that, and we didn't know about crop rotations because we didn't listen to the Indians at that point.
That's right.
So we were not as valuable. So for them, when they realized that, okay, we're losing, well, there's some other things about us actually attacking the ports in England. That's another story on it. But they realized that it would be better off just not messing with us and having us become independent. Because then they're not losing money on us.
Well, it was a war of nutrition, too.
Yes.
Going all the way back. And that was just brutal for them.
It was also a war of attrition.
Well, that's what...
That's literally what he said.
He said nutrition.
Frosted Flakes.
I'm going to stab
great.
So that was me being a smart ass.
No transponders. No transponders.
So, welcome back. We all drizzled our snakes. We're good. Jeremy brought up a good point that there's some more stuff to talk about and points to make about the American version.
What are you talking about, Larry?
About the Headless Horseman story, so we'll kick it off to him.
So, we kind of briefly talked about the Hessian, how Washington Irving pulled a lot from his youth. Because he grew up at the time it was called Northern Tarrytown.
He had a misspent youth.
Yeah, misspent youth. But when you get into the actual story at the party, and so most people know the story from the Disney adaptation, which is very close to the actual writing. One of the differences is in the actual story, the Headless Horseman is carrying his own head.
Not searching for it.
Which kind of gets into where the mythos of the Headless Horseman looking for a head and the story, because there's other stories that were written around the same time.
But couldn't you say that he could be carrying it, but he could still be looking for it because he
head.
doesn't see it?
Yeah, because technically, if the Hessian truly was decapitated by a cannonball, there would not be a head.
No.
There's nothing. It'd be shattered. And that's where the legend of him searching for another head, cutting him off. In the Disney version, he's carrying a jack-o'-lantern and throws it. In the story, he's throwing his head at Ichabod.
Well, couldn't he have been hit in the chest and it just popped off and go... Okay.
There wouldn't be a body at that point.
Okay. That's curious.
You're talking about a 16-pound cannonball
know.
that's about 8 inches in diameter. If it hits, that's why they talk about it. He's headless because it just took his head clean off. He was on a horse, hit him, but in the story,
Job on up.
yeah,
I don't know much about thermodynamics, so...
there's it's just a lot of mass hitting a small area is just bad.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Looking for the exhaust port, 2 meters wide. In the story, Brom Bones talks about how he raced the Headless Horseman. And the story is that they made a wager for a beer, whoever won, because Brom was known to have this racehorse, this black steed, and he raced them. And when he ran...
Why's it gotta be black?
They're the fastest.
Ouch.
In the story, Brom races the Headless Horseman. As a ride, he is beating the Headless Horseman, which is, in theory is not possible because it's a spectral, but whoever wins...
Like apparate and go boop,
Yeah, so
10,000 yards ahead
well,
of you.
we'll get into that's part of the moral of the story is you're not supposed to race a undead rider.
Just like you're not supposed to make a bet with the devil.
Yes.
Like Ghost Rider.
So
Yeah.
as he mentions that he crosses the old church, the old Dutch church bridge, he crosses it, and the Headless Horseman, the minute he touched the bridge, disappears in a flame, and he was safe. Well, running water is known to stop apparitions. There's theories and folklore on that.
But wouldn't so it kind of gets into vampire mythology. I understand that a little bit. Like, so with vampire mythology, they can't cross water unless they're touching soil
of their gravesite.
Of their gravesite. So if the bridge had been covered by the soil of his gravesite, would he have been able to cross the bridge?
Possibly, but he wasn't carrying it with him.
No, I know, but I'm just saying a theory.
And also in the story, they talk about the Headless Horseman hitches his horse at the cemetery of the old church because he's buried there. And when they, when you're talking about the tree,
yeah,
theoretically, he comes out of the graveyard. One myth is he's looking for somebody's head, but he hitches it looking for riders, and then he goes back to there. But the path, the actual path that they raced, is a real path. Like you can walk it. Well, I mean, I think it's a couple miles, but from where the Van Tassels had the party at, where he hits the tree and sees him. That tree is an actual hanging tree. They have it documented, and then you go straight towards, because that was the other decision he made, was instead of trying to head back to where he was staying, he headed for the old Dutch church, because that's where Brom said if he crossed that bridge, he disappears. So he made that decision to go and went, and then in the story, the horse showed up and with no saddle, and they never found Ichabod, but they found his hat and a crushed pumpkin, which alludes that it was actually Brom Bone playing a prank on him.
Trick on him, yeah.
Huh. But I wonder how much of that is actually him growing up, hearing the stories, like he mentioned the tree where the Major was hung for being a traitor, and hearing about, like, there's written documentation of, just keep in mind, this is not in the day and age of Yahoo and internet.
Right.
For him to know, I mean, he would have to really research, or it has to be talked about enough to cause that to go, oh, there was a real Hessian.
Well,
that was
there
beheaded.
was a lot of stories being told in his childhood. He heard a lot of these stories.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And that's where the genius of him to be able to collaborate, get all these stories and collaborate. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And put them all into one story.
Well, it's genius too, because like, how often do kids recollect perfect semblances of a story as a kid later
Well,
on in life?
I don't think that's necessarily him recollecting perfect semblance of a story. that's where his story writing comes in. Like he could fill in the blanks a lot better than you, me. Well, you're a writer, you can do that. But me and Dave, we're like, maybe it was a horse.
Well, but we've both, done dungeon mastering, you will, and I will take something out of a book or a story, and I use that story or that creature as a guideline, and then I throw my story in, and I let it grow organically from it. And I think that's what he probably did.
I think so too, but I think there was, like every tall tale, there is a ounce of truth in it. That I think that there was probably a legend of a headless rider, because that was very prominent in the people around him. And keep in mind, they're not that. The story doesn't take very long after the Civil War. There was a lot of death. There was, he brought in the Salem witch trial, all this supernatural stuff that I would love to go and check it out. And that was the other thing that ties in is like everybody says it's a Halloween story because it's like on the night of the Halloween is where the party, and that's when he shows up because the veil was so weak. The battle where he was decapitated was October 28th, 8 miles from Sleepy Hollow. That all fits in that. Is that a replayment of, is it not a residual of the horse rider being decapitated and taken off?
It's kind of an oxymoron of sorts, in my opinion, to consider it a Halloween story because religion was very rampant at an extremist level here in America during that time. And you all right, buddy? Swallow the fly?
Irish coffee.
And we didn't really celebrate Halloween.
No, Samhain was not well known.
So
well, it was known, but you didn't
delve.
Even in the story, they had a party on Halloween, but it was not a Halloween party.
Yeah,
they were all dressed in their best. They were
Didn't
having
they call it like a rebirth or like a summer or fall like solstice party or something like that, or something along.
Why don't you look that up real quick? So
I'm good.
Okay, but no, it was not a traditional Halloween party where they were wearing costumes and all that. It was a high-end social event that the family threw. And I mean, honestly, it may have been a
gangbang.
No. Jesus.
We're not ready for that. Bobbing for apples.
I'm just saying it could have been a remembrance of the farm burning down because the tassel horns. That all happened about the same time frame. So because they invited the whole town, everybody of importance showed up. So it could have been a celebration like we do for Memorial Day for soldiers and people that passed.
That's a very good point.
But since it's only a short
that was pretty
story,
deep.
Yeah, it was.
Hey, I don't know where you pulled that one out. You did a good job.
It's all
I can tell you one thing I'm getting out of this though, and if I may, if I can jump in and do my thing and make you quit talking for a minute. Which I'm usually do pretty good on podcasts. I will never watch that show again. Sleepy Hollow.
Why?
The TV series?
The way that I always have. I have a whole new outlook on all of this.
I was like, you're never gonna watch it again?
No, absolutely. I'm going to watch it even more. But it's gonna mean more. Yeah, it's just amazing.
Well, I got one more kick for you.
I love it. Let's hear it.
Where do you think the idea of Ghost Rider came from?
Yeah.
Well,
takes heavy influences from.
Can I jump in real quick? Because
before we go to other countries,
before you mention that, there is another American folklore legend about the Headless Horseman, which ties in a lot with Ghost Rider, and his name was what was it? El Muerto, and.
El Muerto?
El Muerto. The Spanish, the French. I mean, at that moment in time, it was probably the biggest melting pot you could get at that. I mean, everybody was there having fun.
But he rode a horse through the plains, his headless horse, lightning coming from his hooves as he stomped, and it was speculated that iteration of the Headless Horseman was a person that was seeking vengeance because he was a man that was captured and beheaded for stealing horses, and then they tied his body to the horse and slapped it on the ass and told it to ride off.
What a great story.
No, and keep in mind when Irving released that short story, it had the effect of like going viral today.
Yeah.
There was multiple people writing stories about Headless Horsemen's, not necessarily the Sleepy Hollow version, all over. Which goes back into, as we were talking about earlier, in the history, like there's so many different histories that go back to a headless rider that why wouldn't, across the United States, people started, hey, that triggered me to, oh yeah, I remember the stories from, when I was growing up in Ireland. Because like the Dulon, its actual writings didn't happen until way later. Like the story of it was passed down by generation, but it wasn't put on paper until after the Headless Horseman was written.
Well, and it wasn't put on paper until paper was invented with the printing press and all that kind of stuff either. Because, I mean, it happened like hundreds and hundreds of years before.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying is like, I think it was like that viral thing of him writing that triggered other people to go, oh, well, my history talks about something like that. And those finally got written down and published. Because before, it was very expensive. Yeah, it was very expensive to do any publishing back then. So with that, they started doing stories to kind of capitalize on it. And you get all these, like the variations of like, well, he did have his head in the story. Other variations that we're all very familiar with is he was running around trying to find a head to replace his own. Like he would try to behead people, and that some of that comes from Walt Disney's influence. But
freaking Disney, they ruined everything.
If it wasn't for Disney, we probably wouldn't be talking about this.
True.
They really helped
if it wasn't for Johnny Depp, I wouldn't be talking about this.
If it wasn't for Disney, you would have got Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder in that version.
Christine Ricci.
Was it Christine? Oh, you're right. It was Christine Ricci.
I always thought she was so hot.
Really?
They're both very good looking. Oh, did
you talking about Johnny Depp or?
Yeah.
Okay.
What
I never thought Winona Ryder was.
You are a sailor, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I've always liked.
I thought she was hot.
Did you watch the Lizzie Borden series that she did?
No, was it good?
Oh my god, that's really good.
Well, I hadn't even heard of it before. What was it on?
TV. But I don't remember what channel.
One.
Yeah, but, that's probably another podcast in itself. Is American Axe Stories.
Yeah,
that could be. You were going somewhere, and I totally sidetracked you, Larry.
No, I'm just talking about El Muerto.
Muerto.
So there was another writer that talked and did a small poem about the Headless Horseman, that El Muerte, and then, like I said, there was others. For whatever reason, the Sleepy Hollow, because he wasn't even Sleepy. Where he was at was Sleepy Hollow. He was actually known as the Headless Hessian Horseman. That was actually the story, and he was from Sleepy Hollow, and then it's morphed into the legend of Sleepy Hollow, which was just the name of the area where he rode.
Interesting. My mind is full of knowledge.
No, I'm just excited to go watch the show again.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I want the cartoon and the movie. Right?
Oh, I'm going home and watching the movie tonight.
When I was looking at some stuff today on YouTube, I also came across an old movie from the 70s. And I'm like, this looked pretty good.
Will Rogers made a version of
it. Yes.
Like that's, and we're talking that was what's
1949.
Yeah, I mean it.
42.
There was even a comic series, the Headless Horseman. Comic series. I can't remember what. Well,
there's an era in like the '60s where you had the Monster Squad and like everything supernatural. Because like really that's literally right after Revolutionary War story. It's one of the earliest
American
stories. Well, supernatural stories.
Yeah, because when I think of like original American horror supernatural stories, I think of two things. I think of the Headless Horseman, Sleepy Hollow. What do you think the other one is?
Wolfman.
No.
I do.
Prey Road. What?
The Bell Witch. Which would be a lovely podcast to talk about. Or not.
Really? The Bell Witch. That's the one you really think of?
Yeah, it was huge.
I'm just trying to...
I mean, it ignited the entire country. I mean...
because they don't have the place anymore. They have the cave, right?
Well, that was her...
Well, there was a cave underneath, though.
But how much of the Bell Witch was stoked by the witch trials?
A lot of it, but it's still when you talk about old
I'll
American
give you that.
hauntings.
Yes, like the early stories that Yeah, because I get into, like, there was the hairy men of the woods.
I'm talking one that took the country by...
It wasn't that big of a country back then.
Well, no, but...
All 20 of us.
But back in the day...
13 colonies.
All 20 of us.
But you would mention the Bell Witch and everybody like, oh, I know what that.
Well, the other one is Roanoke.
Roanoke.
Roanoke is another good story of...
I'd love to talk about Roanoke.
Getting closer and closer, man, from finding some stuff out, from my understanding.
That's... Oh, yeah, I thought you were talking about that.
No, he's literally talking about science. He's being a buzzkill. Let's get back to facts.
I was thinking you were talking about Oak Island.
No.
I was like, that's a little
but no,
far away.
I would get... Yeah, the Bell Witch is pretty early in the U.S. And, well, and like, Roanoke is not... A lot of people didn't know about it in the early days. It was literally...
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until later that people really started talking about it. Because, I mean, again, news didn't travel that much. It wasn't, and, a whole city, a small settling group disappearing was not uncommon.
They didn't
back
travel
then.
very much either. They just disappeared.
Yep.
And what was the word? Well, I mean, we'll get into that later on. Croatoa.
Croatoa, yeah.
So, let's. Are we good with the Sleepy Hollow legend, or did you want to?
Did you want to go into any of the English stuff?
Yeah. No, that's what I want.
Yeah, I think I've covered enough to make people start doing research and looking into the history of it in the area.
Yeah, and I know I speak for myself.
Really?
Sure,
just for yourself, huh?
I'm sure I speak for these two too. That I really hope this ignites an interest in the viewers that are watching to go do some research and correct us on things that we may have been wrong on. Do your own diving, because it is a really fascinating topic to look into.
Yeah, even if you're just looking into the American history, how it all ties in, and you just skip over the supernatural part of it, it's fascinating. And that's what drives me to do a lot of what we're doing now is the combination of both. Usually you have supernatural events that are tied to major historic events, and they usually go hand in hand.
And a lot of times I think that's done because it's easier to stomach than the actual true history. If you put something that's a little more unbelievable into it, that's just my opinion.
Like the Black Army?
The Black Army.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that one at a later date.
I'm going to look that up tonight because I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, don't the one in Hawaii,
Silver War was Black Army.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I know the Black Parade.
It's a little different. There's more music.
Oh, that one parade.
So, yeah.
My father took me to the city
to see the Black Parade.
It's a part in the Revolutionary War that made it more palpable. But look up it's called the Black Army. It was an event.
Interesting. Anyway,
I think it just makes things a little like I think you're right. It's like you tell the supernatural story and it kind of takes the edge off of how horrendous what really happened. Yeah,
it makes.
Or you make nursery rhymes. Like there's the importance.
Yes.
Which is like
Ring
to me,
Around the Rosie.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, yes.
London Bridges falling down.
Yeah.
Which all preludes into when you get into Nightmare on Elm Street. They incorporated that with the nursery rhymes and that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the last thing I kind of wanted to get into was the Old English folklore, the Arthurian legend of the Green Knight, and relevance to the Headless Horseman topic. You know what I meant. So do you guys know much about the Green Knight?
What's that?
Do you know much about? Shut up.
Well, I was horrible in high school. Obviously, because I only showed up like once a week. But my favorite class was English. Not because I was good at English, but because we did Arthurian history, and I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
Or Northern mythology, and I loved it. So, absolutely, the Green Knight. A knight that came in, and he challenged blow to blow with Sir Gawain. Said, I'll let you have a swing at my neck, and if you... but I get to retaliate. And Gawain's like, well, there's no way you're going to, you're not going to get up from... Gawain was a bad dude. I mean, he took Lancelot to the tip, right? And Lancelot had to wear him down till his peak strength went back down and able to take him out. But Am I going on a tangent?
No, it's just something he said. I'm sorry.
To the tip.
Yeah, he took Lancelot to the tip.
Well,
To the base.
till the 9th round. Okay,
Yeah.
he took him to the until he wore him down.
If you're not a Thor into Arthur, and that Sir Lancelot was the best fighter in the Round Table, even better than Arthur himself. So that's why they built his character up on the story of the Green Knight.
So Gawain cuts this guy's head off, and the
With
green
one stroke.
with one stroke, which that was his thing, and he walks over, picks up his head, and says, "A day in a year, I get to return the blow." And then I believe it's been a while since I've been in high school and read the story, but I do believe that he did come up and Gawain kept to his word. And I don't think he took that shot at Gawain. In the movie he did, but I think...
the story he doesn't take that. It was all
about
ruse.
valor and...
It was to throw unrest into the court of the Round Table by Morgan Le Fay.
That's right.
Who gave him the ability to withstand a beheading.
Yeah, because she was basically who gave the Green Knight, or his name was actually, you find out later, Bertilac de Haut-Desert, gave him power to
be able to do that.
To do his thing, yeah.
Right.
To take the blow and be beheaded and still go.
But it was all, like you said, like, there's no honor among these knights and trying to throw that. But, Gawain, being the knight he was.
Yeah, the story is he had, as a knight, he had a lot of doubt. He looked at possibly running, and when it came down that they were trying to prove that the Knights of the Round Table didn't have chivalry anymore and all that, and when he laid his head down to let the Green Knight take his head, he didn't, and it was because of the fact that he stood up to chivalry. He knew, that he was willing to have his own head taken off because that's the deal that they made. Because he didn't know that the Green Knight had the ability to be able to survive something like that, and that's the moral of the story. Is
it was all about humanity and how humanity has to sacrifice.
So you're talking about part of this influence the Headless Horseman.
Yeah, and the thing that I read that I found the most interesting was that Gawain was supposed to travel to the Green Chapel to meet the Green Knight for the showdown. And I found it interesting when I did research on English folklore that the devil himself was actually represented as a green entity. And a lot of people think that this Green Knight, as it were, was the embodiment of the devil trying to persuade humanity to follow him.
Well, that's a story. That's a story to be taken off another story, right? Trying to make something else. Yeah, for sure.
Well, because there's a lot of variations on Morgan Le Fay. She was supposedly a student of Merlin, that was lured away, some by witchcraft, some by So I could see the devil being tied into that, since it was her power that caused the Green Knight to have that ability.
Yeah, and the color green was often
depicted before red. Yeah,
depicted as like rebirth and renovation,
sure.
rejuvenation, and all that
sure.
kind of stuff, and fertility.
Absolutely.
So it kind of makes sense. I think that story, in a roundabout way, not directly correlated to.
It does get brought up though.
Yeah, but it did have an influence of stories going forward about Headless Horseman. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. In my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it came up in my research too that a story that predates, but talking about being beheaded and still being alive and being able to do the tasks,
But the beheadings were just really big, especially in Scotland back in the day, because they wanted beheadings to prove, hey, show me you killed my enemy by beheading. The king, I believe it was the king, the kingdom or the royalty was saying that.
If you wanted to prove that you'd killed somebody, you'd literally take their head and bring it back.
To prove it, yeah.
It was very common then to have the head dried out and be as a trophy.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of saints that were beheaded.
Well, they also did the
heads.
show because you don't have to see the head that shrivels up. It looks like a horrific
Well, I mean,
monster.
look at Mary
You look-
Magdalene's skull is encased, and I mean that's the head. It's not the whole body. And,
Well, I mean, look at Caribbean and South American and African folklore too. The
Shrinking
the
of the head.
shriveled
the
shriveled
shrinking of the head.
shrunken
Japanese,
heads.
yeah, there was issue with
Yeah.
Japanese soldiers and.
So that's all I had to talk about tonight. Did you guys have anything to add to the whole situation?
Not me.
You sure?
No, I learned a lot. I loved it. I think the history of it. Like I said earlier, I'm excited about watching it again.
Don't watch
not
the
just
Green
one
Knight.
of them. But I'm gonna watch. Like all the versions I can find of it. And
Just don't watch the Green Knight movie again. 'Cause that was,
no, that was brutal
That's
and
atrocious.
such a good actor and such a horrible movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to be very artsy.
Yeah.
I think the writing failed. Like it was cinematically pretty. It just that something fell through on the story.
Yeah.
Don't forget to check our YouTube series, Chumming with the Spirits. We post a new episode every Friday, as well as the audio versions on Spotify, RSS, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, and still working on getting Patreon set up for tiers for you guys to get merch and extended access to outtakes and things that we talk about behind the camera. If anybody has suggestions for future topics or things they would like to hear about, please contact us, email us, send a comment down below. We check those all the time. We're going to be next week actually interviewing our first interviewee. Thank you.
As our podcast is start, well,
As our podcast
not
is-
really. We had a son, my son.
Well, he's more of a
Yeah, but that's
special
not- that's-
He was
guest.
more a
that's a special
participant.
guest.
Yes.
This is an actual.
So she has
hire.
not responded to me yet, but we're hoping that next week
Yes.
we will have a new
I redact
guest.
that. We're hoping.
We're also on Facebook. There's a Parachum
Yes.
Facebook page. Please comment, message any of the videos on TikTok, or we have shorts that go on TikTok and then eventually will be on YouTube. Please comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Yes, we know it looks like we're in a prison. Sometimes it feels that way. We'll be putting stuff up. We'll also be changing the venue back to the couches for more people. This area is great for us three to be able to hang out and talk, but when we bring more people in, we have to go to a larger room.
And possibly a surprise coming up, like an investigation that we
Yeah.
might be doing. One or two. One possibly somewhere real close to here.
We're just so you know, we're in the greater KC area. So suggestions if you're in the area, locations. I mean, we know a lot of locations, but we'd be happy to hear from you guys if you know of areas or places.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you guys, man. Appreciate you too.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great
See you
night.
next
Be
time.
safe.